This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, I have a guest on the phone that I'm so happy to call her my friend. She was my first solo interview, and we are celebrating the 35th anniversary of Class of 1984. I've had 5 different guests on this show from that movie, 3 of which have been on here twice, and 2 brand new from this year. And the guest I have on the phone is one of my favorites. I have the absolutely talented, the absolutely gorgeous, still 35 years later, I still think she's one of the most beautiful actresses I've ever seen. I'm talking about Lisa Langlois. Hello, beautiful.
Hello, handsome.
Thank you.
Not to sound Hollywood.
Well, you know what? I mean it, you know? It's like, I remember when I first saw Class of 1984, I never forgot you, you know?
Thank you. Yeah, it's so interesting because you just don't know how people are going to respond. And I've had people Facebook me and they say whenever they have to face up to something, they take out their inner Patsy. You
know what? Stefan Erngrim told me something about that, about an artist that had contacted him and had made the same statement that he had connected with you. I think it was an artist, somebody anyway, that said, you know, take out their inner Patsy. You'd have to hear his first interview, you know, and that is all set out. But yeah, he said something to that too. And there's days I have to take out my inner Patsy.
Well, you know, maybe I need to start saying that. But normally what I say is I needed to take out my inner Langlois because I grew up with 4 older brothers, and they don't take any guff from anybody, and neither did my dad.
Nope.
So I do have this, you know, and some people will admit to me, the people that really know me, and I think it's because I did grow up the youngest of four brothers that, you know, you have to make your way, and my mother was a single mother that raised all 5 of us by herself. And so it was days that there was no daycare, and so my mother had to, you know, I went to doctor's offices by myself. As a little girl, I went to dentist appointments. I went to all my dance classes by myself. I went to baton competitions sometimes with my mother when she could get somebody to drive her because she didn't have a driver's license in those days. And then, you know, she would give the porter $5 up for the train and send me up for the summers because, again, there was no daycare. I'm going to sneeze. I can't believe it. and excuse me, I might sneeze.
That's okay.
And so I would have my aunt and uncle in Kirkland Lake, Ontario. They would look after me for the whole summer, and she would slip the porter $5. She would pay for me to have a berth. You know, those are the compartments that have beds.
Okay.
And of course, that would be, you know, probably illegal these days because it would be some kind of child abuse.
Yeah.
But it's all my mother could do.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a very loving way in that sense, in that my mother had very caring sisters and brothers, and they would take me all the time. But you learn to, you know, be independent, and I certainly learned from that, and also because my mother had a coffee shop where, or as Canadians say, coffee shop, where, you know, it was the ultimate live-work situation before they built live-work lofts like they do now.
Okay.
Where when my mother left my dad because she had to, she got on one of those trains.
Okay.
And with just green garbage bags with all my brother's clothes.
Okay.
And she went down to Southern Ontario where some of her sisters and brothers had moved, and she saw a restaurant for lease for $500, and she said, I've got 5 kids. It's for lease for $500, and I know I can cook. And that's where we were raised. We lived upstairs. My brothers and I shared one bedroom, 5 of us with a boarder. My mother had her bedroom in the living room, and it was wonderful. We'd all pile into her bedroom and watch, hockey night in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And I always knew that where my mother was because she was downstairs, in the restaurant. I always knew what my dinner was going to be because when I came home from school, there'd be this thing in the window about what the daily special was, and we weren't allowed to order what we wanted. We had to, the food, our dinner was the daily special. Our treat was when we came home from school is that we'd be able to walk by and open up those pedestal cake stands and take a donut.
Okay.
Honey dip donut was my favorite.
Okay.
And when my aunt helped my mother, she wouldn't let us have a fresh donut. We had to have a day-old one.
Oh.
And then my brothers had amazing lunches, and they used to sell them at school. And she'd always pop a chocolate bar from the restaurant, and my brothers could entertain their friends and make them milkshakes and hamburgers. And they're were amazing stories. I'd like to make a series about it because there were customers that used to come just to see my mother get the five of us in the restaurant out to school in the morning. It was their entertainment. It was a sitcom. There were so many funny things that happened. Like when, for example, when my mother first opened the restaurant, she was super, super nervous. And some guy came in and he said he'd like 2 hamburgers. And she was super, super nervous. And so she made the hamburger and, and put it in the bag and paper bags in those days, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And he left to go back to work. It was his lunch hour. And she was cleaning the grill and she noticed that she had left the 2 hamburger patties beside the grill. She'd forgot to put them on the hamburger.
Oh.
The guy came back the next day and said they were the best hamburgers he'd ever had. And he'd like 2 exactly the same. Amazing stories. There's amazing stories. And it was also the days where, there was no regulation for bathrooms or anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, my mother was open at 6 a.m. and she closed, before dinner. And, the mornings were very, very busy because all these construction workers would come in, and it was like a madhouse between that and getting us off to school. So at one point she decided that it was just easier to have the honor system and have for people asking for their coffee, she would have a table and she just put the sugar on the table with the cream, and people would self-serve and just put their money in a bowl. And it was the days that people did that. It was that honor system is so wonderful when people use it. So anyway, this particular morning, it was a madhouse, and we ran out of sugar and pressure. And my mother was at the grill,
mm-hmm.
and we didn't. We were all sitting in the dining room, which was next to the coffee shop. It was adjacent. And beyond that was the kitchen. Now, the dining room where we ate, customers did not go there, but they had to pass through the dining room and go up the stairs. And they go down a hallway past our bedroom to our bathroom. I mean, we shared a bathroom, the 5 of us, with the public. Okay?
Okay.
So those were the days, my friend. And so this particular morning, we, of course, ran into sugar. And my mother looked over, and she said to my brothers, not me because I was too young, would one of you go down and get some sugar? Now, kids, they're lazy. They don't want to do anything. But this was a big thing. They were 100 pounds of sugar.
Yep.
And nobody wanted to do it. And so boys will be boys and all, insult and tease one another. That's why I can take a lot of teasing. And my oldest brother, of course, who was, older brothers take advantage of that they tell us what to do. He turned to my brother Mark, who we always teased about having big ears. He had those, Clark Gable ears that should have been pinned back, like Clark Gable.
Yeah.
And my brother Jack said, Mark, with your ears, you can fly down. They were it was in the basement where all the the pop was stored in the old wooden boxes, and he came back with, well, with your fat you can roll down. And so then the argument started, which happens with boys, right?
Yep.
So my mother just couldn't take it, and so she turned and she said to her, one of the waitresses, can you take over at the grill? and we know by the look on her face that we're in trouble. Now, my brothers all played hockey.
Mm-hmm.
So before school, they would go to their hockey game, and there were a lot of hockey sticks hanging around in one place when when they come in from school, because they're always placed in one place. So my mother, and this is, I'm not telling stories out of school. We laugh about this now and say that, she'd probably be, go to lose her children for doing this, and it would be called child abuse. But she took one of the hockey sticks, and we all took off upstairs and hung under, like hid under our bed.
Yeah.
In our one bedroom. And my oldest brother, he went down the basement. So she went down the basement and gave him a few with the hockey stick.
Well, we were disciplined kind of the same way growing up, so I get it.
People did corporal punishment in those days.
Yep.
I remember when I had my dog, even when I finally got my own dog, I mean, my family, they thought, oh, how can you ever not hit a dog when you're training it? And it was the best dog, best behaved dog I ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, man, 30 years ago when one of my cousins had children, and she announced, well, she did two things. She first of all, she breastfed in front of everybody. That was like, oh my God, somebody is breastfeeding in front of us.
Yeah.
And she also said she was never going to hit her children. So that, that was the beginning. And then, of course, I announced I wasn't going to hit my son, and I never did. And he's the best. Everybody says, God, your son is so wonderful. And I said, well, he came out that way, and it was my job to keep him that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I also took a parenting class 4 times. Because my role model, of course, for parenting was the Brady Bunch, I Love Lucy, and my parents.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had to take a parenting class 4 times.
Okay.
So my mother goes down the basement, flies down, gives my brother a few chops, and then she runs up the stairs with the hockey stick. And there's like 22 stairs to go upstairs. She runs up, and at the back, and so she doesn't see us anywhere, right? Because we're hiding under the bed. But she sees the bathroom door closed. So she says, all right, I know you're in there. And she goes, and she can't get it open. And she's pushing, and she's hitting it with the hockey stick, pushing it. And she said, I'll get you if it's the last thing I do. And she, when you're angry, you have this, like, power.
Yep.
And she bursts through the door, and there is a customer trying to hold the door closed with his pants around his ankle.
Oh. That's funny.
My mother started crying because she was so embarrassed. Well, the next morning, all the construction workers, the men came in, all the men from the hydro. They were all lined up, and they were all asking to use the bathroom. That's the way they kidded one another, right? And they said, Margaret, we knew you were desperate, but we didn't know that you were that desperate. And it was an amazing time, because my mother used to, people would come in, people that they called hobos in those times, but people riding the tracks and ask for food, and she would be giving them food, and then it got really, overboard, and it turns out there had been a mark on the front of my mother's on the sidewalk. So finally, the Salvation Army came, and they said, you don't have to do that anymore, and we're going to take care of them. And, wonderful organization, the Salvation Army. I mean, people say, they're Bible thumpers, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen them help them and help our family. I mean, when my mother left my dad, it took her a couple months to get set up, and, I was the one that went to my aunts and uncles because I was only 15 months old, but the Salvation Army took 2 of my brothers in for the summer. And they do amazing, amazing things that people don't hear about. So I always, and my brothers and all of us at Christmas time, when that bell is ringing, I always put money in there, and I put it in anonymously. Just, and I just moved back from California, and I donated everything to the Salvation Army.
Oh.
Yeah. Just they they're just wonderful. They've really been there. So they were magical times in the restaurant. There were so many, many, many stories, and I always say that I'd like to write a sitcom, because it was a cross between you know, I've never seen anything like it on television. And my mother was this really funny, powerful person, and there were so many laughs. And people say to me, "Gee, you can walk up to anybody and start talking to them. And how do you do that?" And I said, "Well, I grew up in a restaurant." I said every morning, you know, when I'd sit at the counter, I'd meet somebody new.
Yeah.
You know, and when I was really young, my mother would say, you know, 'cause we had to cross the main street of Dundas, Ontario, to get to the bus. We took 2 city buses into town into Hamilton because we went to the French school.
Mm-hmm.
And my brothers, being who they are, you know, they were kids. They didn't want to wait for their little sister. So my mother would get one of the customers to walk me across the street. It was another time where you could trust people and people would do things.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, that was the role model I had. And if there was a strange person at the end of the day or first thing in the morning when my mother was by herself, there was always one. This makes me want to cry, you know, of another time. But there was always one of the men that would stay on just quietly because they didn't trust that person. For my mother.
Yeah.
And it was just magnificent, just, you know. And there were other funny stories too, because there was at one point where everybody was getting broken into on King Street in Dundas, except for my mother's, because they knew my brothers. And people would say, you know, when I got older, you don't want to date her. Do you know who her brothers are? But it was a good thing because they made sure. I always say, they say, how did you turn out? You know, you didn't have a father who was around. I say, because my brothers were like fathers. They made sure I hung around the right people, and they kept the wrong people away from me.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then, you know, my mother handed the restaurant over to her sister, because at one point her sister, you know, her husband got very ill, and she had to start working and move from Peterborough, and that restaurant raised those 4 children.
Okay.
And then ironically, the restaurant still exists. My sister-in-law, after my aunt, it became a frame shop for a while, but my sister-in-law had always wanted to, she was a letter carrier, she had always wanted to have a restaurant. She took that spot, the very same spot, and she turned it into a tea room called Taylor's Tea Room, which is her side of the family's name. And if you go to that tea room on King Street, there are pictures of myself and my brothers on the wall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was just such magical times, and it was just never the same, because after that, my mother got a job working as a social worker for the Children's Day, so she was gone all day, and she wasn't home when we came home for dinner, and it was just never. It was why I chose to step back from my career to raise my son. Why I chose, when my son had his accident, not to have other people look after him and stop working as an actress and just take these low-level jobs that I could have flex hours. I could take it because I remember that my mother couldn't take me to the doctor or the dentist or to, you know, excursions and anything like that. And so I had the choice. And I told my son, I have no regrets. It was so healing for me able to do that for him, because, you know, I know he felt guilty, especially after, you know, he was hit by an SUV and he had 20 surgeries, and people go, well, you know, what happened to your career? Well, you know, I didn't have time to pursue it, and there's no way under those circumstances that I'd want to walk into the room and do any comedy, and there's no way that I wanted to feel any drama, because I had enough drama going on around me. And so that's, I don't, you know, do you want to ever hear these stories, or do you just want to hear about my films?
Oh, I'm delighted to hear about these stories. I did want to ask, how is your son doing now?
He's just, I can't believe, for what he's been through, who he is. And I got a Single Mother's Planet Award.
I know, I've donated.
You know, and I just found that out. I saw it the first time on Facebook, but I didn't know about the 2 other donations that you made. And I'm so, until you told me just the other night, and I'm so touched by your thoughtfulness and generosity. I'm just so touched. It really makes a difference. It's the little things that people do that when they can. So I took my son, who won't talk about the accident, and I took him to, and he had just had a concussion surfing. Ironically, it was a year ago, May.
Yeah.
And I took him to the awards, and there were all these women who told these stories about being homeless or having to choose between food and a roof over the children's head, and some of them who would, and they'd all, something had happened, like where they'd invented something and become millionaires, or just really inspiring stories. And this one woman said something that you in life, you never know when you're going to hear your story, or when you're going to when something is going to be very pivotal. So after the awards, my mother said to me, Mom, what that woman said was what happened to me, because before I always wondered, why did this happen to me? And she said, it's because God knew that you were the one strong enough to handle all that.
Yep.
And that there was a reason that you'll, and I see this in him already. He has a level of empathy. And, what I was taught in the parenting classes, that they know that EQ now is a much greater indicator than, emotional quotient, than IQ in terms of success in life, because you know how to relate to people, you know how to feel their feelings, so you know how to manage them. And I think it's what, allowed me to be an actor in one way. And my son has the most empathy I've ever seen in someone, and they drilled it into us in classes, that instead of calling, labeling people, instead of saying that's not how it is, or when somebody's expressing what happened to them, or they're behaving a certain way, if you can just get out of yourself and understand how they're feeling, you will communicate much better. You will get much further, and you will strengthen your relationship. And this leads me into Alan Alda, who I booked on Idea City, which is what I've been doing for the past year. I was, Moses Znaimer had the vision to and asked me, would you step into the shoes of our other producer during her maternity leave and produce this? And that honor. Yeah. So my real estate agent couldn't believe it. He said, Lisa, you just up and came up. And I thought, yep, that's what my mom did. She left and she said, this is what I'm doing. But my brother had said to me, my brother Greg, you'll never have this opportunity again. And so for the past 10 months, it was just on in June. It's been going on for 18 years. It's the TED Talks of Canada. Moses actually, I didn't know this, founded the original TED Talks and had it for 2 years, and then his partner sold out, and so he called it Ideas, and he now calls it Idea City. And I had seen Alan Alda a couple of years ago on CBS Sunday Morning, and I think on 60 Minutes, talking about his science communication that he does at Stony Brook University. And science communication is he and people don't know this, but he was the host of American Scientific much longer than he was on MASH. Okay. But what happens is you get branded a certain way. I mean, there are films that, like Close Your Rolls movie, that for me that was the ultimate experience for me. Mm-hmm. But what's happened is it's films like Class of 1984 and Deadly Eyes and where I tried to bury them initially, because I was an artiste and I'd worked with John Huston and Hal Ashby, and it was the times that up here when in Canada at the time there wasn't a film industry. It was a time when there was maybe there were so many films in the summertime, but there was nothing the rest of the year. And in Canada, actors don't have unemployment insurance like in the States. Yeah. And so you end up taking films because you're in survival mode, rather than being that waitress. Mm-hmm. And so because I never had to be a waitress, it was a real, I kept thinking, God, all these directors I work with, they would say, what are you doing, Lisa? What are you doing these films? And so for years I buried it. I didn't have it on my resume, but with the internet, everything you've ever done, shows up.
Hmm.
And then I start getting and then Facebook comes along, and I see all these fans that are Facebooking me, and they're loving those films. So a couple of years ago, I went to a screening, and I had so much fun. And it was actually here in Toronto I want to get in touch with them, but it was a screening of Deadly Eyes at
Hmm.
Trash Palace, they call it.
Okay.
And the audience had so much fun that I called Joe Kell, who's in Deadly Eyes in the
Hmm.
class of 1984, right after that. And I said, Joe, it was so much fun that you have to let them videotape you, because he couldn't come up here. He's running a business down there. So he did for another episode. And it's just so much fun. It's like, laughing about, your teenage years, because, in high school, because, of all the things that happen. I mean, there isn't this kind of drama when and this level of funny things that happen, really, when you're working on it, as you are on low budget films.
Hmm.
But, let's face it, I left Canada because so it wasn't about being a star for me. It was about having a place to go to where, I could work year round and have unemployment insurance and get residuals, because, at the time there was no assumption agreement with ACTRA. I mean, I was the outspoken one, and I was not, I was persona non grata, for a while with the union, because I kept saying, we pay you dues, and you should have gotten an assumption agreement for us, like all the other unions do. And an assumption agreement is when a producer makes a deal with you and
Hmm.
they sell the film to another entity, that responsibility to pay you,
Yep.
um, goes on. The other person assumes it. That's why it's called an assumption agreement. And they didn't have that. And I'd done like a dozen films, and you see them on VHS and then on DVD, and people are constantly saying, "Hey, I saw you on cable," and it just hurts every time. It's like a stab. You feel
Hmm.
so abused. And
Yep.
and and particularly with Class of 1984, there's mixed feelings. For example, it's like having come from an abusive family, where we, like, the brothers and sisters know we came from this abusive environment. So the family is Neil Clifford and me, and I don't know whether Michael J. Fox and Timothy Van Patten or Perry King. I suspect they got the residuals because they had Screen Actors Guild contracts.
Well,
So I moved away.
Stephen
And so
Arngrim
I
said
don't know if Stephen Arngrim had a Screen Actors Guild
he was
contract.
on SAG, I think.
Yeah, because he came up from the States.
Yep.
And so I moved to the States, not because I needed to be a star, because I wanted to be a member of the Screen Actors Guild, because nobody messes with the Screen Actors Guild, because here you get put on the unfair list if you're a producer, and you can go on and make other films, because really, you know, really, you can survive without using some of those Canadian actors, because in the end, it's still a colony, industry where the Canadians in a lot of ways are still playing the day player parts. I asked the head of the union. I said, well, what is the average income of an actor member? And they said $15,000. And I thought, God, they're not getting any unemployment insurance, and no wonder, Canadian actors are so well trained, because as a result, they have to do theater, they have to do commercials, they have to do everything, and so they become really, really good. And word is they're better than the people that are starring in these films. But if you're on the unfair list with SAG, that's it for you, because you always need an American, at least one, to star in your films,
Yeah.
to get your distribution. So it's like on Class of 1984, we're all like, abuse survivors in a family. And some of us start to talk about it. It took me probably 20 years to talk about our experience on that, because you think you're going to get in trouble. Just like
Yeah.
you think you're going to get in trouble if you talk about the abuse you took from somebody, the sexual or physical abuse, so you suppress it. But I don't think I would have done that had I been, the good Canadian. if I'd been an American and been brought up in America and had the Screen Actors Guild, I'd speak up. I would have spoken up. And I just had a conversation with my brother Greg, and he said, Lisa, and I didn't know how American I'd become. First of all, I didn't know how Canadian I was, and what being kind of Canadian was until I moved to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And the wonderful things about Canadians, but also things that don't work in business, as far as being an entrepreneur and also standing up for your rights, because Americans, let's face it, they're built on revolution.
Yep.
That country is built on something's happened now where they're not, standing up for themselves as much as they used to. And I think it's because of the economy, and everybody's been treading water for so long, just trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
But until the 90s, when everything, just fell apart for them, and even worse in 2000, when everybody lost their pensions, and they stood up for themselves. And whereas, I have this friend, Monica Parker, who does this great imitation of Canadians because of the British tradition, when they're on a plane and things aren't, something goes wrong, everybody just turns and they over their shoulder and they look around and they kind of put their heads up, and look at what's going on, and they don't say anything. And I'll never forget my first experience with Americans standing up for themselves. I was in Los Angeles. I just got in there, and I was at the post office. And somebody, I guess, had taken a break, and so they got, there was one person on the wicket, and there were more and more people lining up, and it got, there was more and more, brouhaha, and suddenly people were talking out loud, saying, "No, we're not taking this."
Mm-hmm.
It's like that Patty Chesky movie Network, which I love. I want Americans to get like this,
Yep.
I want you to stand up. I want you to go to your windows. So I'm not taking it anymore.
Yeah.
And I so want Americans to do that right now with what's happening in their country.
Oh, yeah.
People think I've moved back because of that, and I know that the timing. Oh, of course I wanted to move back. Of course I wanted to, but I didn't want to take my son away from his father. But I got this opportunity from Moses, and then my son was finally 16. I mean, Moses, first met me 3 years ago, but my son was finally 16, and I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to come.
Ah.
And I've asked him, I said, Emerson, what do you think the difference is between living in the States and living in Canada? He said, Mom, I feel that in Canada, no matter what happens to you, you'll always be taken care of.
Yep.
You see, there's a positive and a negative to that.
Mm-hmm.
What I found is Canadians aren't as entrepreneurial as a result, as I find Americans are. And the Canadians that are move to the States.
Yep.
And there's a complacency, and which can be charming and can be right, but and so I end up speaking up. And my brother said to me, Lisa, you're not Canadian anymore. You're American. And I thought to myself, no, I'm a hybrid now. And I actually think I've gleaned the best of what Americans are, and I've kept what the best of Canadians are, because Canadians, we love them. They are like beavers.
Yeah.
They're industrious,
mm-hmm.
and they work along, and they can be destructive, but they do it quietly. Where Americans are birds of prey, and they're imperialistic, so they do come down on people.
Yeah.
So I feel like I glean the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a sip of tea. That was a long monologue.
Oh, that's okay. People want to hear you. They don't want to hear me. They want to hear you. And I'm delighted to hear from you.
I wanted to get back to the Alan Alda thing, though.
Sure. Yeah, I watched that segment. Yeah.
Yeah. So he said, "Oh, and by the way, everyone can go online, and I call them bedtime stories for adults, and listen to those talks. And there's 18 years online of the best and brightest in the world. And I think, frankly, Idea City is much better because Moses has substance.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't fluff. And we know that he's been an iconic person who has revolutionized TV over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and he was unsure when I mentioned Alan Alda. So what I saw him doing is he was teaching improv to scientists so they can learn to communicate with each other. Because if you learn improv, one of the first rules is that you have to really look at the other person and forget yourself and see their face and their actions. And so what he even does to get started with people is a theater game, and that's where you toss an imaginary ball back and forth. And so you have to really lock into the other person where they're at, and then you can start, and then he has some, do improv. And he did that because, if you read about it, it's because he would see that in talking to scientists, that they didn't know how to explain things to laymen.
Mm-hmm.
And that they could be brilliant. And in fact, they didn't even know how to explain their stuff to other people. I mean, amongst each other. So he has this book that just came out this year, and I feel it's a feather in my cap that, he cleared his entire schedule to appear at Idea City. It was the only stop in Canada. And he has this new book out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called, If I Understood You, Why Do I Have This Look on my face?
Okay.
And so he goes into how he started with scientists. But then he goes into how this art of communication has helped him with angry people, even cab drivers. And he goes on to showing you how it helps you in business and it helps you in your personal relationships. It strengthens them. So I've been trying it. And at first, and he talks about it, it's very difficult because we're just not used to communicating that way. And you, in fact, are taught this in parenting class to mirror people. And when I think about it, when I do it with adults, it works. But at first, it doesn't come naturally. And in this world that has become where people can't rise above their keyboard to have a conversation with someone,
mm-hmm.
where people text to break up, where people email, where they never pick up the phone anymore. I spoke to this anthropologist that Moses once got a book that he's had on before, Lionel Tiger, who's written several books, one of them being The Iconic Decline of Man,
okay.
on Idea City. And I love what he called it. He said, you can't hear emotions in text and emails because emotion they're denuded.
Yeah.
And I just had a friend that was my best friend of all time who we'd had a falling out. And she emailed me yesterday to apologize to me. And I said, well, but she texted me or emailed me. I don't know. I don't even know which one it was. And she apologized. And I said, we'll talk. I said, I don't text or email people or friends or family anymore because I want to rise above the keyboard.
Yeah.
So obviously, she misunderstood me, and she wrote back, "See ya." So I know there's an example once again, and because what happens is when you read something, you take your own
exactly
psychology to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, for example, because I had a rageaholic father, and he had a lot of other qualities, and we all have our dark side, right? So I'm being open about this.
Mm-hmm.
I hear when I go to the side when I read an email or a text of somebody yelling at me or being mad at me.
Okay.
And I'll never forget saying to a therapist once, "Oh, I guess they're mad at me because I haven't heard back from them." And she said, "Is that how they dealt with their feelings when somebody was angry at somebody in your family? Did they stop calling people?" It was like this light went on. And there was actually an expression in my family. I'm giving them the silent treatment.
Okay.
And, it doesn't help. It doesn't resolve things.
Nope.
It really doesn't. And I can't impress upon. I'm going to tell the whole world, read Alan Alda's book. If I understood you, why would I have this look on my face?
Mm-hmm.
So start looking at people's body language. Start looking at there's I've been asked at Zoomer to be the chase producer on and one of the shows that they're going to start airing. And this is very exciting.
Yeah.
Because Moses had the nose to buy Downton Abbey.
Okay.
He is, he does. I just feel such an honor.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is called Mind the Gap. So it's a reality show, and it's a hit in England where they take millennials, and I don't know what it is, but since I've come back to Canada, all everybody talks about is the problem with millennials and disruption. If I hear disruption one more time, it's like disruption in every. I never heard that term at all in California, but that is a buzzword up here.
Yeah.
So they put millennials together in a house to live with, older Zoomers.
Mm-hmm.
But and so the Zoomers have their perceptions, correct?
Yep.
And they have their and people have their stereotypes of gay people and different races. So of course, with the millennials, they'll have some gay people. They have some gay people. They have some people of different races. And for me, when I'm watching, it might be because I'm an actor. Because I watch documentaries too.
Yeah.
I don't watch movies to learn how to act. I watch the face of the person when they're being convicted for real. I watch them when their house is burning down.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, you'll see one of these older Zoomers say, well, those gay men, they're so promiscuous, which is a stereotype. Because there are some straight people that are promiscuous.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You see the anger come up on the other person's face and their actions. You see the hurt. And it can be very funny, and it can be very painful.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll see somebody say, and it'll be an Archie Bunker moment, where they say something stereotypical about races, and you see that other person who's from that race defend themselves, and or just not say anything, or they end up just being angry at the person because they don't have the Alan Alda tools in their toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
And I am redoing all the relationships in my life now based on Alan Alda's book.
Okay.
And so there are going to be the people that are going to be able to do it. And the other thing that I do with people, too, that I'm doing, it's been a pivotal time in my life.
Yep.
And so there's two questions I ask, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do I feel, after I've been with this person, do I feel drained or do I feel energized?
Okay.
Because I used to think success was how many people, how many friends I had, because I was brought up with this notion of my mother saying, well, I had 12 showers before I got married. So, I used to see, and two of my brothers, when they died, man, there wasn't even, people were like, they couldn't fit in to the funeral home, when they had the service. And so I thought that was success. But now I know, and it was. They actually had really authentic friends. I have to hand it to my brothers. They do have authentic friends. Because they tell it like it is, or they move away from people that aren't good for them.
I know you lost
and
one.
I don't know how I didn't get that. So what I do now, when I'm trying to purposely doing in my life, is say, do I feel drained or do I feel energized after being with this person? But I will first of all come to them, and I will start using Alan Alda. But I will also say what didn't work for me, and you'll hear two things. You'll hear that they don't take responsibility. It's I didn't come here to get beat up by you.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll say, wait, how do we work this out? Wait, I can do better. And if I hear anything else, if I don't hear that that person either doesn't have the capacity, and my life's too short, I don't have the time anymore,
Mm-hmm.
or they don't want to do it, which does not leave me feel valued. I feel undervalued.
Yep.
And I think it's my having felt undervalued that led me to want to be an actor, because I needed to feel didn't want to feel my feelings.
Yep.
So it was so much easier to feel other people's feelings, be told, like, read a script, and to get up in front of people and perform. So I to have that kind of, fame, or it washed my shame away. And but I never felt other, I wasn't ever feeling my feelings. And also, so if you can be a workaholic, or that was my drug of choice. Or people do all kinds of different kinds of drugs. They do people, sex, gambling, alcohol, drugs, to not feel your feelings.
Yeah.
And they reach for things not to heal their souls, and they're reaching for things that heal how they're feeling. But it's in reaching for spirituality and surrounding yourself, because there's nothing wrong with people. When you listen, when I came up here and I'd forgotten about the indigenous people, because I moved away and I didn't see them in California. And I come up here and I thought, oh God, I remember this now, because two things happened to me. I came here and I saw them all over the street. I saw it, on drugs and alcohol, and I saw them in the buses. But on the other side of it, I went to the Indigenous Film Festival and I saw this recovered side. But since I've been up here, I see there's been this real movement towards Indigenous reconciliation. Because and hopefully, but it's going to take several generations, because you carry this spiritually on with you, the abuse that you've had in your family.
Yeah.
And with the advent of Dr. Phil and Oprah and everything, and all these talk shows, which have gotten more and more exploitative, but with Dr. Phil and with Oprah, actually Phil Donahue, Dr. Phil has gotten really exploitative, and I understand. And this pains me to say it, because he wasn't like that when he was on the Oprah show. But he too is started hiring actors to be those people. But if you get the message out, if somebody even in the reenactment or the over the top, if you get the message that, this person is recovered, or this is the kind of relationship I'm in and you need to get out of it, then maybe those exploitative shows are okay. If somebody just gets that message.
Yeah.
And so it's a lifelong time of recovery. And some people, they never recover. Their bottom, when they talk about 12-step, until you hit your bottom, some people, their bottom is dying. Other people, it can be, I told all kinds of people about different 12-step programs when I was in California, because it was hip. It was hip to be open about it and get recovery. And because I didn't think there was anything wrong with me, I'd succeeded. I hadn't turned to drugs and alcohol like other people, but I'd become an actor and wasn't feeling my feelings, and became a workaholic. And reenact and got into relationships with people that, in a dysfunctional way, it felt safe, because that's all I knew. Mm-hmm. That's what I had equated love with, because it's the kind of love that I got in my core family. So my bottom, after telling all kinds of people, like I remember one woman coming, calling my agent, saying she'd written script and she'd like me to be in it, and it was felt. At the time I was going to, Al-Anon and adult children of alcoholics, and she knew that was kind of part of my life. She said, "That's great, because the script I've written for you, it's about that's that whole thing." And so I said, "Well, you should come to some meetings." And on our way to our third meeting, she said, "I'm beginning to wonder if I'm an alcoholic." And I said, "Well, why don't you just go to some 12-step meetings? Why don't you go to alcoholics and just see? Mm-hmm. What's the problem? Just go see if it's for you." And then I remember turning another friend on to 12-step, because he revealed, he came from an iconic Hollywood family, and he was an iconic PR person. And he revealed to me that he was a survivor of incest.
Okay.
So he started going, and unlike other 12-step incest survivors, you can't go unless you're brought in by someone because there's too many people that go to they want to hear the story, so it's very underground. So I remember it was like a Saturday morning, and I had gotten off the phone with him, and I was crying about something, about my family situation or something. And I got off the phone, and he said, Lisa, why don't you go to a, meeting? And I'd never been before. And here I was telling everybody, he goes, you tell everybody else to go. And I got off the phone, and I thought, I'm 3,000 miles away from my family and friends, and there are still things. They're causing me to cry on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
In paradise. And I was really successful in my career. I was doing studio pictures. So I got back on the phone with him, and he said, "Are you ready? Because there's a meeting at 10:30 this morning."
Okay.
And it changed my life. I mean, you don't get better overnight. Now I still have issues that I have to work on.
Mm-hmm.
But as I've gotten better, I've been less interested in being an actor. I'm more interested in feeling my own feelings. I'm more interested in being, one of the things I'd wanted to be like Jodie Foster, where I had how do you stop using that word like? Because there was a time we could speak without using like.
Mm.
And because she did meaningful films with great directors, and ironically, I got Blood Relatives with Claude Chabrol because he wanted to work with her. And she was already doing another French film, Moi Fleur Bleue.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be her. And I wanted to do quality films, but I had only really wanted to be successful so I could lend my name to charity.
Ah.
And one day it came to me that you don't have to do that. You can just help everybody that comes along your path, because whatever you believe in, whatever higher power, God, universe, my belief is that they come into your path, into my path. I do whatever I can with whoever I know, whatever I've learned, either psychologically or people in the business, to be a connector with that person, to put them together with other people, to cross-pollinate. So I don't feel that need anymore to have that fame. I don't feel the need anymore to have that fame to wash the bad feelings of shame. It's been incredible. And so at the same time that this really starts crystallizing, and I went through the worst 10 years of my life with, I had a pivotal person that came into my life from an actress, Michelle Scarabelli.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who she is?
Who?
Michelle Scarabelli, who's this amazing Canadian actress.
Okay.
Say to me, I was telling her about, some of the things I'd been going through, and she said, "Do you know who Dr. Murphy is?"
Okay.
And I went to him, and he said to me, "Lisa, there's nothing wrong with you," because I'd fallen into a depression, and I couldn't get out of it, and I was just seeing doctors that just wanted to give me medication after medication after medication. And he said, "There's nothing wrong with you. You just have to change your lifestyle and the people that are around you." So the final chapter was coming up here for this job and finding out, somebody asked me, a longtime friend, "What was the hardest part for you to move back?" I said, the hardest part was to find out that those people that I thought that were my friends
Mm-hmm.
were just industry friends, because not one of them said, "Is there anything, can I help you with anything? Is there anything I can do? Do you have a place to stay?" Because I always said to people, it was my joke, but it was so true, you never know how many friends you have till you have a beach house, you have a driveway at the beach,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a garage at the beach. And then my new expression, when I just moved away just now and sold my house and got rid of everything, is you never know how many friends you don't have until you move. Because those people, I had people that just saw my posting on Facebook and they showed up. And I had people that stayed in the trenches for days. And yet I had other long time friends that said, "I have plans this weekend." So what? For the 9 days I was moving, it took me 9 days, but I had people that stayed every day and all day. And those are the friends that stay in the trenches with you, that aren't just friends in the good times. Because as a friend said to me, because I had one person who said, I can just be there and this is a person that who made a lot of money off me, a lot of money, say to me, oh, I'll help you move. And then oh, I can't. I'm going to Newport Beach. I can be there from 9 to 12. Never showed up.
Yeah.
There was a person who called me, his soulmate that I'd known for 10 years. And that response was, oh, I'm going to Santa Barbara this weekend. Maybe I can change it for one day. And as a mutual friend who knew this person said, what's going to be more memorable for that person, having gone to Santa Barbara that weekend or having helped you, that person who calls you his soulmate, that person that has been your friend of your family for 10 years? What's going to be more memorable? His having gone to Santa Barbara and maybe cut his thing short for one day, or having helped a friend? Because when you're on your deathbed, you're not crying out for that trip to Santa Barbara.
Nope.
You're crying out for the people that meant something to you. And that's how I'm leading my life too. I'm doing it in reverse instead of forward. That who are those people that I'm going to be crying out for? And those are the relationships I'm going to nurture. Unless those people are leave me feeling drained. Don't lift me up. The people that criticize me, put me down, that say, oh, you're so sensitive. Those people that don't have a high enough EQ.
Yeah.
The people that I will nurture are people like you that I've become friends with. The people that do have a high emotional quotient. The people that are there for you. The people that don't use you just because they need you. I actually had I had people show up, not offering to help me move, but asking me if they could have things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Just coming to see what you have. Do you mind if can I have that vintage table? Because I'd like to give it to my mother. Really? Can you maybe make a donation to Single Mothers Planet?
Yeah.
Because that's who I called to. Two people I called, Single Mothers Planet and Salvation Army, to donate everything.
Just a curiosity, did you do this by road, like transport truck your stuff? Like, how was the process going back and forth? Did you go by plane or by road?
Well, I came down to the States with 2 suitcases.
Okay.
And I came back with 2 suitcases.
Okay.
And over the 32 years I was in Los Angeles, the stuff I came back with every trip was my family memorabilia, my career memorabilia. And the stuff I will come back with is just my memorabilia, which is in storage, because I didn't have very long. I had 3 weeks I could take off from Idea City. It was over. Mm-hmm. I came up, this is full circle almost. I came up here September 3rd over the long weekend. Mm-hmm. And left everything. Got my son up here in February. Yep. And that was a trial in itself. And not for him, but this is the kind of thing. And I say this because people say, "Oh, how could you share that stuff on Facebook when your son won't talk to you anymore?" I've had people say that to me, but then there were all those people that came forward. I'm going through the same thing. My child, has just gone off to live with my ex, and they've been brainwashed. Yeah. And when my son went, when I went to see the psychologist, he said, "Your son's been brainwashed. It's all about him pleasing his dad, and all about his dad getting the house. His greed in getting the house, because the agreement that I made with his dad, so that my son could have the consistency that I didn't have, because we moved a lot as a kid, is that we did not sell the house that he grew up in until he finished high school."
Okay.
And so people, how could you post that on Facebook? Because if you don't talk about it, you can't fix it. If we don't start talking about everything, we can't fix it. And I just read this article that, if you have a healthy relationship with money, you talk about your debt. If you have a, if only people in the workplace talked about what they're making, people wouldn't be having suspicions that they're not making as much as other people and they should be making more. And they have an expression in 12 Steps that you're only as sick as your secrets.
Yeah.
And it's not a weakness. I mean, actually, survivors, have a strength to them that the people that weren't, that were the overindulged, they just, like, people say to me, oh God, like, I just can't believe, what you did. Like, you produce ideas. You left. You produced Idea City. You went back. You sold your house they had for 32 years. And it was the end of a 10-year relationship definitively. So you did death and divorce. No, you didn't do death. What was a death of a relationship? You did, so you did, like, divorce, death, and moving, which is this, the three highest stressors in less than a month. And I said, well, I had a really strong mom.
Yep.
I come from a line of very strong women. And I asked a therapist before, I said, why is it that some people survive the traumas in their lives and other people don't? And she said, Lisa, it's not the trauma. It's the people that you had around you to help you process it. And I had all those loving aunts and uncles. I had my brothers. I had my, my mom. And equally, you just have to surround your people in your life with people that are healthy. Pick your own family. And in business, where my career failed is I didn't have the team around me. I didn't have the great PR agent, manager, accountant people around me. I didn't know. And because of my dysfunction, I stayed loyal to people much longer than I should have, because I had abandonment issues. So I hate saying goodbye. I can't say goodbye to people. I have abandonment issues. I hate that feelings that happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't. I have a hard time, but I'm getting better at it.
I can relate. Yep.
I relate. I got rid of, like, there was at one point that the move got so hard, and I knew somebody that would be so great at helping them with the move. But I know that she comes with, she's just so high maintenance and not honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't call. I didn't call that friend and let her know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have maybe 5 friends in California now. After 32 years, I thought, God, but you know what? They're friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm making friends here that are friends. My friends I went to school with, they all called. Said, hi, how can I help? Do you need anything? I have a complete, I have, from moving in with my husband, I have my whole basement of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that if you need it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is pretty awesome. No,
and I'm just sharing it because I just want people to know that they're not alone out there. They're experiencing that too. But just reach for things that heal you spiritually, and not the things that just heal you physically, because that's only temporary. Like being, that gambler that makes you feel better, but taking that alcohol, the drugs, smoking, this, the sex and everything, that's so temporary.
Yep.
It doesn't sustain you like, having a spiritual life, whatever that is for you, whatever higher power, God, universe, whatever, and surround yourself with like people.
Yep.
And for me, honesty is core. I for some reason, I can tolerate a lot of bad treatment and acting out in people, but the moment I find out there's been dishonesty for some reason, that is the deal breaker with everybody for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you. No, it's great to have you back in Canada.
I can't tell you how happy I am. I can't, and it was great when I left, and I was sad, and I felt like I was jumping ship, because there were the people that stayed behind. Mm-hmm. And I feel that I got off the Titanic leaving the United States because of everything that was going on. Everybody, with Trump and losing health care, and God, like, everybody was downsizing, and there was just no work for anybody, in California, actors, and everything had moved to the East Coast, because they had subsidies and they were right to work states. So it got to a point where so Eric Roberts is working all the time, and there's the other stars that are getting those parts, and then the rest of us it had turned into a box store as far as I'm concerned, because you would get these offers, but Lisa, but would you fly yourself in and work as a local? And it's just over and over and over again, and it's like I just need to feel valued, and all the work had gone to Canada too. And so what? But I just don't want to be, one of those cotton pickers up here, like when I left, where it's the owners of the cotton fields that make all the money, like the big stars that are making the money, and the producers that come in to make money, and those us Canadian actors, that they're only giving the 1, 2, and 3 day parts. Those cotton pickers that are, and we're being told, you should just be happy that you have this work. I hope that's not, because I can't do it.
Yeah,
I can't do it.
I know the story behind Class of 1984. I know you mentioned Neil Clifford earlier, and
Neil Clifford, probably next to, along with there's three. There were so many moments, but I just can't. I can't believe. Talk about lack of empathy. Here is a guy who, really good actor,
a really good dancer,
really happy, and his wife was pregnant.
Yeah.
And the night that she was having her baby,
wasn't allowed to leave.
Let him leave.
Yeah, that's cruel.
That would never happen with the Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah. Yeah, Stefan Arngrim told me to reach out to him, but he said, you probably won't get him, but at least invite. And last year he turned me down. He said he respectfully declines. And this year I thought, well, I'll try again because it's 35th anniversary, and I really...
Everybody's broken from that. It's like I said, it's like coming from a family where you have a lot of shame because everybody was abused. I ran into Perry King at an autograph show, and he didn't want to either. But I said, Perry, we're all fans are loving it, and it's okay. So he said, okay.
Yeah.
And same with Joe Kell. We're wounded.
Yeah.
And same with Timothy Van Patten. We're wounded. There was a moment with Timothy that we were just in so much pain, and it was a scene where the character was called, I think, did I talk about this on the other show? If I did, tell me, and I don't want to repeat myself, but this is when they bring in, the character was called the Kokor.
Oh, so, yeah, okay.
Did I talk about that in the other episode? Because I don't want to repeat myself.
I think they brought her in, and I think I mentioned that if I had a shot that, like Alfred Hitchcock shot a nude scene, the shower scene, but you never see Janet Leigh naked. And I'm like thinking, if you're gonna do a nude scene, but you want to avoid an R rating, why not be innovative with the camera and find ways to shoot around?
Oh, it's so much more seductive. It's just so much more that it's just like horror movies too. The imagination is so much greater.
In that young lady, yeah.
Einstein said, imagination is greater than intelligence.
Yeah, because I remember
like I said, we know that EQ is so much. That's why we love animals.
Yeah.
Because they have, they don't have the intelligence that we do, but they have such a high EQ. They can empathize.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want people to sympathize with us because they're staying with themselves.
Yeah.
We want them to empathize. We want them to. It doesn't matter if they don't agree with our feelings, but those are our feelings. It pushed our button some way. That's our reality. And so they shouldn't be minimized. And animals don't do that to us. And animals don't lie.
Nope. No. No, I remember I was mentioning to you, because I had Gord Lewis on from Teenage Head, of course, who performs in Class of 1984.
I know.
And I joked with him, I said, they got this naked woman in that scene, and here I'm listening to the song Little Boxes, which isn't even listed in the credits. They listed Ain't Got No Sense. But I like Little Boxes. And I said, you know, it's the first time you see a naked woman on screen. I'm listening to the background music. Because I play Little Boxes a lot on my show, you know?
You know, I'm going to listen to it because I never made that connection. I never knew until you told me this the other day that on TV, when Stegman is at home with his mother, that there was a Mark Lester movie on.
Bobby Joe and the Outlaw, yep. Mary Lynn Ross is in that.
I didn't even know he did Bobby Joe and the Outlaw. I just knew he did roller derby.
Yep.
I didn't want to do that film because it was so low budget, but I wanted to break my image of just being this warm girl next door, because the really, I gotta hand it to Mark Lester. He gave me the chance. Because Claude Chabrol actually showed me as a somewhat evil person. He had in my first film.
Yeah, blood relatives. Yeah.
So the greats will give you that chance. And Mark Lester did have a vision, but it's too bad he was missing out in the EQ.
Yes.
Or because when you have EQ, you don't let other people. You don't stand by. And you don't let other people be abused, either physically or emotionally. And you don't do it to them either.
Nope.
When you have an EQ.
No. Yeah, I watched that scene. I'm gonna tell you, I had Erin Noble on for the first time.
They wanted me for her part.
Yeah.
Said, please.
She had mentioned that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's funny because between you and her, I've had two people from this violent movie sing me happy birthday.
Well, it's just not. They're all coming of age, these films. I mean, Happy Birthday to Me.
Yeah.
That's come of age. Shout Factory. Last year they had called. I think it was called Summer of Fear or something, and they re-released Class of 1984, Deadly Eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And Happy Birthday to Me is owned by a studio, which that's why I get residuals from Happy Birthday to Me. But I almost didn't get residuals. I had to stand up, and I was the unpopular person. But I was, you can look on the credits on who, not John Dunning, but you can look on the credits. And this would never happen with the Screen Actors Guild, but, it was released on video, and it was like a huge hit. Mm-hmm. And I had to call to say to the union, you ask them why the Canadians haven't received anything. And the answer was, the producer said he had lost his papers. Really? Really? The dog ate your papers? So I said, you tell that producer, you ask him, does Revenue Canada know that you lost your papers?
Yeah.
And within a week, I got paid.
Yeah.
Residuals.
I was going to say something. I
may not be done with Class of 1984. It's just that I had other things that happened, like my son's accident, and you have to prioritize things in life.
Yep.
And like I said, when I'm on my deathbed, I'm not going to be crying out for that money or that great career or anything. I'm going to cry out my son. I'm going to be crying out for those friends that nurtured me and that will be there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not done.
No.
Yeah.
I wanted to share something with you. I was talking to Erin.
Yeah, let's share.
I wanted to share something because I remember when I spoke to you last time and you thanked me for stuff I noticed about you. Like you come in through the metal detector and you would suck on the end of the nightstick, or you go in, you'd suck on the end of the clarinet that Erin Noble had. And I even noticed stuff like this with the other actors, like Neil Clifford. I'd noticed, because I could imagine what this looked like on script, and you guys really did some background, like the hand gestures and stuff you did.
It really bothered me. It was like so sexist that I had no dialogue, and there was no stage direction or anything. And so everything, like I decided, okay, this is a person who sexualizes everything.
Yeah.
So that was my through line.
Know what I would have done?
And when I said,
yeah,
I like to watch,
yeah,
you know where that came from? That wasn't in the script. I was at the Toronto Film Festival that year.
Okay.
And the button, which I still have, came from being there, ironically, directed by Hal Ashby, who I would soon work with.
Okay.
And so it's a theme of the festival, this button, and it said, I like to watch. So when Mary Lynn Ross was being raped, once again, I was given nothing to do. And so I came in kind of dancing, like, you know, and I did that kind of chicken head, like a chicken, like looking around, but where can I get, you know, some seeds here? And then I also, and I said to Mark Lester, I'm going to say I like to watch. I said, so can you get me a camera so I can take a picture of the event? So that's where he got the idea to take that, you know, where that Polaroid went is that I would deliver the Polaroid to Perry King. That wasn't in the script.
Wow. Let's go share something with you.
Share.
This is funny because I told this to Erin Noble, and she added something to it that I never thought of, and it was just amazing. I said, like, Patsy was the lone female in the gang, and I got wondering to myself, what if there was a subplot in that movie where there was a fella that had a crush on Patsy, and she found out about it and either used it to her advantage, or a situation happened where he got the tar beat out of him.
Absolutely.
And I said to Erin, I said, what if? And I think Patsy survived the movie, as far as I'm concerned. I think she survived.
I'm always a survivor. I always get killed in movies, like nearly killed, and I survive. That's in my brand. If you look at the through line, like for example, like we talked about this, I think in my last interview, where we're in Happy Birthday to Me. In the original, I got the axe in the head, and I would have died, but it was going to be an X rating, so they took that out, and I became the survivor. I always survive. I'm this vulnerable, doe-eyed person because if you look at Patsy, she has a vulnerability there. If you notice it, she's just hurt, and she wants to hurt everybody.
Well, you know what I would have done at the end of the movie? I would have, after they're looking down over the skyline there, I would have panned the camera up and just have to go to black. Then maybe have a shot that maybe you're getting out of that car somehow, and you're kind of going off, and I would have you...
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
But I would add something to it. Remember Marathon Man, when Laurence Olivier's walking down the street as the Nazi, and he's paranoid that everybody's watching him?
Oh, wow, yeah.
I would have Patsy just kind of going into the night street, and she's like wondering, does people see her and see her? Maybe have her check into
she has to change. It would be like Carla Homolka.
Yeah.
That, you know, the life that she's like, that's the thing. I left, and this Carla Homolka thing was going on, and I come back, and she's going on parole, and they've discovered that, you know, she'd work in the daycare center. That is terrifying. That you, in the next version, you see that Patsy, you know, she's, of course, she has to take off her punk rock guise, and she has another life like Carla Homolka, which is even more frightening.
I'd take it a different level.
At least you could see Patsy coming from a distance, right?
What I would do, I'd have her like go into like a cafe, whether it was a night cafe, kind of fix herself up a little bit, and then maybe go out through the back alley and just kind of wander through, and she hears some footsteps, and she turns around, doesn't see anything, and then she keeps going, and she hears a bottle break, and then this bottle comes up to her throat, and it's Deneen, the clarinet girl.
Yeah.
And what I would do, I would have had Deneen. The next shot, Deneen says, you know, I'm not going to turn you in. I have other plans. You know, the guy that I said I would write in that had a crush on Patsy, I'd have him show up at Deneen's place the next day. And like, what's up? Like he's out of the hospital or whatever happened. She goes, they have a brief, tiny little discussion about what happened the night before. And he goes, and she reveals that she's got Patsy prisoner downstairs. I don't know whether they're tied up or whatever, you know, and she's got Patsy. And we see Deneen's sadistic side. And I'd have that kind of that last shot be of your eyes. And you know how symbolic filmmaking can be. Be like, they might have you, but your eyes say, you have them because you know how you're going to get out of this.
Oh, God, this is brilliant.
I would have done that.
You've seen a lot of films.
I would have.
You know that also, that bottle wasn't a scene either because, once again, there was nothing for me to do with the guys that were aggressors.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to think of something, and I thought, you walk down an alley and there's always some liquor bottle, right?
Yep.
So why don't you pick up the liquor bottle? And you know, and I might have talked about this too, that, you know, this was the Wild Wild West days.
Mm-hmm.
So there did not exist a breakaway bottle in Canada. So the problem was, though, is the whoever ordered them, the, I guess, props person, only brought up 2. So I had to really make sure that it was broken the right way because I could only do 2 takes.
Yeah. But you know what Erin said?
Yeah.
Erin liked the idea, but she said, you know what? Patsy's a follower. She would never survive without that gang.
No, I don't agree. I wasn't a follower at all.
Okay, interesting take. But that's how I would have ended the.
When I look back,
yeah.
When you think about it, I grew up the youngest of 4 brothers. I just made that connection now.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't a follower at all. I identified with being with 4 guys. Do you think I
oh
would,
yeah.
Patsy wouldn't be with a gang of you know. I'd be the leader probably of, you know. And I Patsy felt like an equal.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I just didn't have the muscle that they did. I had to intimidate people intelligently because I did not have the muscle that they did.
Mm-hmm.
But I had the emotional, you know, EQ in that film.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and Stegman, of course, was brilliant both ways. And I remember Timothy Van Patten, he made the decision. He said, no, I don't want to be dressed up in punk. I want to be regular. We followed him.
Yep.
He was our cult figure. And I was just talking to Jeffrey Clarfield, an anthropologist, and we were talking about cults, how they, how it happens, you know, that people join cults.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's brainwashing involved. And obviously, just like, you know, Charles Manson, you know, what's the difference between, you know, Charles Manson and having his followers and Stegman having his followers? True,
yep. Stefan brought up...
And what do you think, had we not died, what would have become of these people?
Yeah.
You know, would they have burned out? Would they have, you know, for example, when, you know, I've watched, not Squeaky Fromm, the other Charles Manson follower, and she comes up for parole every year. Mm-hmm. And I've watched it. And, you know, you do things when you're young. And you wonder, can these people ever be rehabilitated? Can they, you know, do they have absolute remorse? And I look at her, and I believe that when you're not brainwashed anymore, and you're not, you know, on drugs or things, are you, or do you think differently when you with drugs? But when you once you're not brainwashed anymore, like, you know, Patty Hearst, you do think differently.
Yeah.
I mean. But it's so painful because the other side, the people that experience that heinous crime, the family that's left behind, it's so painful to know that those people could have redemption. And I always say to my son, I never punish him.
Okay.
I say, I don't believe in punishment. I believe in redemption. And what I always say to him, so it's like, yeah, okay, you did this once. I want you to redeem yourself. But if it's a second time, I say to him, let's talk about what you think, how you can redeem yourself, instead of using the word punishment.
That's a good point.
Hmm. Well, I think it's more spiritual, really.
Yep.
In the end, like I got signatures in California for Jerry Brown's, let's get rid of the death penalty. Because
Yeah.
they don't have it anymore. But they had reinstituted, and they've proven over and over again that the death penalty is not a deterrent. That these people, they do it anyway. They just think that they're not going to get caught. That's why the death penalty isn't a deterrent. And we're part of the barbarians in the world that kill people. Whereas I saw Michael Moore's documentary where he goes around the world and he looks at prisons in other countries and he looks
Yep.
at schools. And these prisons, like in Sweden and that, where they're not locked, they have rehabilitation, they even have them, with knives, being chefs. You got to wonder. You got to wonder. And yet, one of my favorite shows, and my ex-boyfriend would say, how can you watch that? And I'm watching it because I love watching the human emotion. I love watching it as if I were doing that scene, with these people in prison, how would I act, And you see these people and you think, wow, if they were placed in these environments like the prisons in kind of the socialized countries like that are deal with rehabilitation, what would have happened to these people? I mean,
Yeah.
there's that famous rat experiment. This, where a Canadian, I can't remember his name, he's a Canadian scientist in Vancouver who turned it all around. Because people say, when you put rats in with cocaine, they just kill themselves. They just keep having more and more cocaine, And this guy, what he did is he rebuilt the rat cage, where he made it colorful and gave it things to do, toys and spinning wheels and everything else. And what they discovered is when you put those rats in that environment, they don't become drug addicts. The cocaine's there. They don't go and have it.
Mm-hmm.
So evidently the people in Europe, they don't have rat cages. But we, in the United States and Canada and like a lot of other countries, they're even worse. They have rat cages that are barren, just a cage.
Mm-hmm.
Just a cage. It's just what happens to an animal? You just keep them in the cage. You don't let them out.
Oh, that's
What
right.
happens to that animal?
Exactly. Yep. That's why stuff like the North Shore Animal League is such a great charity, because animals aren't kept in cages. It's kind of like a confined, and I've donated to that once or twice as well.
Well, I just, in coming back, been asked to host the Dogs of Asia benefit, and Mark Ching is coming up to speak. He's a huge person in that field.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being produced by Lisa Turney with Four Pillars, and I want to get the word out.
Mm-hmm.
She does really need help, and I said it's just a matter of PR and getting the word out. And it's in November, and I had no idea about this happening until I had to put my dog down about 4 years ago, and so I call myself like a dog predator because I go to these things, these dog events, and to be around dogs. I need the therapy,
Yep.
because doing Idea City, there's just no way I could have a dog. And I say, I go to dog parks and I don't have a dog. I'm just like a child predator. I'm a dog predator. But I went to International Dogs Day last summer in Los Angeles, and I learned about the Dogs of Asia. And it's interesting because in this girl, it's just this Lisa Turney just trying to get sponsors. She can't mention this part, or people get turned off and they don't want to sponsor it. But what's happening is they eat dog meat,
Oh.
and that's one thing. But what the treatment of these dogs is just like the pigs. They go in these they're crated up, and then they chop their paws off while they're alive because they think that the meat's going to be more tender.
Oh my.
Yeah.
My parents have 2 dogs, both rescue dogs. My nephew has 3 dogs right now. I have a cat, and I'd hate I wouldn't want to see anything like that happen to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's called Rescue Me.
Okay.
And it's about rescuing the dogs from Asia. It's in November, I forget the exact date, because how I've been dealing with my life in the past years, I just deal with what's going on today. For example, when you called me about doing the anniversary interview, I said, Greg, I just can't do this right now. I'm in the middle of a move.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry about it. I don't worry about it.
Literally, I was in my backyard, and I had 5 friends, and it was clearing 32 years of accumulation. And what do I keep? What do I purge? What do I donate? So I can't. And so now I'm actually looking at Dogs of Asia thing, and what I want to start talking about and getting the word out.
Okay.
Yeah, and so part of that will be thinking about how I'm hosting this, thinking about telling people what the date is, and start posting it on Facebook, and just getting the word out. And it's really hard because how do you decide between who you're going to help with what charity? And even in your own life, for example, how do you decide whether you're going to give to that person on the street, or whether you say, I give all my money to the shelters, and so I don't want to help these people because the shelters will help them? What is the answer there? Is it like when I went to India, where my mother and I, when we went out every day, we'd say, okay, we have this much money we're going to give away every day, and when that's gone, that's it for the day. Do I do that every day? And or like, just before, when I was coming up here last time, I got a call from a girlfriend. She goes, "Oh, we just take this dog in. It's a Chihuahua. I've already airlifted like 12 to PEI, and can you take it with you on the airplane?" And I said, "Bev, I don't know. I'm already checking 2 suitcases. I don't know whether they'll let me, take another one." And I just don't know. And it's really last minute, and because what happens is these Chihuahua movies come out, and everybody thinks, I want a Chihuahua. They're so cute. And then they realize that they shouldn't have a dog, and how labor intensive, and that the match isn't right for that dog, like that emotional, how that temperament of the dog. So then they drop them all off at the shelter, and so there's an overabundance of these dogs. Or when 1001 Dalmatians comes out, everybody goes out and gets a Dalmatian, and those are very aggressive dogs. So they realize very shortly that they shouldn't have that dog, and so those are in. But you ask yourself, well, should I just be rescuing these dogs that are in Canada and forget the ones that are in Asia? Should I just be helping the homeless here instead of sending my money away to the people in Ethiopia? It's so hard to know.
Yep.
What is that answer?
Yeah.
And these stars that get asked to, they're constantly deluged by, would you help this charity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with that said, I definitely want to throw a huge thank you out to you for doing the Suicide Depression Doubtfire Face Challenge.
Thank you very much, and I hope it helped people.
Well, you're not the only one to do it. I've had a few other takers on it as well,
Who are the takers?
Well, Nancy McLaughlin from Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives did it. And she's coming back on again next Friday. She was on last year. And she said something like that was being talked about on the news when she was in Britain visiting, And she got all the props that she had at her house from Jason Lives, and she propped it up behind her for the 30th anniversary. And she did the Doubtfire Challenge in front of the props.
Maybe I should do it again. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. But I know, I thought it was really, really cool because I was watching an episode of Our World Today, and you guys were in your pajamas and cooking hot dogs there in the morning and whatnot. And
that was my idea. I said, why don't we really make it reality? Why don't we come to my house? Why don't we have a pajama party?
Yeah. And I just saw you as a real person. I said, the Ice Bucket Challenge took off, and I got somebody close to me that's got ALS, which is hard to deal with because there's no case of it in my family before. And the Ice Bucket Challenge, just despite people doing it and not knowing what it was, it still rose awareness, and it still made money. And so I thought, gee, let's try this again. And I've always been a fan of messy humor, like the Pie in the Face or these Nickelodeon shows where people get slimed and stuff. I don't know why. I always liked that stuff. And so, and I saw that episode of Our World Today. I thought, I bet Lisa would probably do this. And I know the first time I tried it, it ended up failing on me because I aimed way
Oh,
too high. So,
well, I know, I know. I was saying the same thing, that I thought this would be really easy. And just like the broken bottle. I only had one pie. And then
yeah.
the thing that really surprised me is my son like pushed it into my face, and the aluminum pie tin really hurt my face. 'Cause you
Oh.
know how there's those ridges
Mm-hmm.
of a pie shell? I thought nobody ever talked about this before. My voice is very raspy today
Yeah.
because I'm very tired today.
Yeah, same here, yeah. But I was going to say, well, number one, I did not know your son was going to rub it in your hair. I should have said something to you about that
It
beforehand.
wasn't the hair; it's the face where it hurts.
Did he slam it hard?
No, it's like when
No.
he twisted it, right? And he pushed it into my face, and so that the pie shell, it's aluminum, and there's those ridges.
You know what you do?
It,
What you
what is the
do?
technique? What is the pie in the face technique? Let's let everybody know right
Okay.
now.
Number one, Nancy McLaughlin, funny enough, she used a cake. I thought was, I don't know why, but, but nonetheless, some people use a real pie, but sometimes pies can be expensive, But
I know.
but you know what? You just
You
get like
have to know where to get your pies.
get a like I'd say get a paper plate because they're easier, and you just mound up the whipped cream on it, and
Well, then maybe that's what I love that we're getting this information out, right?
yeah.
And if you don't talk about it, you can't fix it, right?
Yeah. And I thought it was great because I could tell you and your son had a great relationship because I could tell he was enjoying it. And in your video, it got like 500 hits in a week, and I'm like, that was pretty impressive. Mine doesn't even have 100
Well, I
hits
don't know
yet.
what that means. I don't know what how many hits it means. I don't. I'm gonna have to get to know that. Now that I'm not on Idea City, now that this horrendous 10 years is over, I'm gonna have to find out what about Twitter and hits and everything. But I have to tell you, I did my manager had told me to that I had really needed to work my social network, social media. So I tried. Oh, I tried over, like, it was a year ago, January. I tried it over Christmas and for 2 months, and I couldn't stand it, and I'll tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
It felt so narcissistic that everything in my life became about me, that every conversation, every experience I had became, oh, this would make a good photo op for Facebook, for Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was never living in the moment, which you're ideally, it's a sweet spot in acting where you're not thinking about anything else other than experiencing in the moment.
Yeah. But no, I appreciate you doing that, and I know Leslie Donaldson said she's gonna do. She said she wants to do it with you.
No, I'm going to do it with her. I think we should do it overlooking my balcony to show that we'll have the CN Tower in the back. In fact, I'm going to tell her today. I'm seeing her this afternoon,
Yeah.
and I'm going to tell that Donaldson woman. Leslie's got some very exciting news with scripts that she's written. She may not want to talk about it, the success that's on. She's identifying herself more as a writer now. I'm hoping to finally get the this book that I have, a Canadian book that I used to have the rights to, but the author said, if you ever want to do it, I'll let you have them again. It's an art house film, so it'll be harder to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm learning is, you can have second and third acts. And that's what Moses said, about Zoomers. Zoomers are boomers with zip. It's he coined the term. And when I met him last summer, he always said, text me when you're in town. And he said, I came down from Ottawa. I was doing this Lifetime movie that actually aired a week ago.
Mommy's Little Boy.
I always find out when things are on because suddenly people start texting me and emailing me, and I was doing that last summer.
Mm-hmm.
And I texted Moses to say I was coming to Toronto, and he said, "Well, like, would you like to do?" And I said, "Actually, I'd like my son to meet you." And so he spent a lot of time with us. And then when we were talking, he said, "Do you know what a Zoomer is, Emerson?" And he explained. He said they're boomers with a zip, and he said, like your mother. No,
Okay.
he said the boomers with zip, and they don't retire, and they have second and third acts. He said, like your mother. And for me, that was probably the most touching thing Moses has ever, for me, the most meaningful thing. And that's why Idea City was meaningful for me, and I wanted to take the job. And I actually didn't even look at over my shoulder, saying, "Hi, I'm in Toronto. I'd like to be acting right now," because it was meaningful work. It was getting people with great ideas, getting on the stage, and spreading it to the world.
And like I said, when you and Leslie do that, I'll make another donation to your charities for you. You want me to continue with the Single Moms Planet, or do you got another one?
I want you to do what you want to do and not feel any pressure, because that's not what our friendship is about, because I liked you for you.
Yeah, but you know what? When I donate to one of your charities, it's my way of saying thank you, and I think that's very.
I can't tell you what a thank you means. And I carry this thing around me, with me, and it's about really it's for Thanksgiving. It was from a calendar I had, but every day, it was a thought, and it was something about giving thanks. It doesn't cost anything, but is priceless for anybody on the receiving end. Yep. And mostly when it's something significant, I send a thank you card, and because I know that when I get a card, it just means so much more to me that the person spent that time to pick something out, and they put it in the mail with a stamp on it, which takes all that time, as opposed to the worst for me. The worst for me is somebody send me a text to thank me.
Oh,
okay. I remember getting a text or something I'd sent someone. She'd had a new baby,
mm-hmm.
and I spent the time and it was Christmas time, and I think the baby was born in November. I don't know, maybe December, because it must have been. So I spent the time to go out and get a onesie. Those are long johns for kids. That was a Santa one, a Christmas one with a hat. And she never picked up the phone.
Oh.
She sent a text with a picture, which means it was like getting a knife in my heart, that I'm not worth even a phone call. I'm not worth a phone call.
Okay.
That's how I received it.
Yeah.
So I just didn't respond, because I thought that's that person's emotional capacity, and that person doesn't make me feel good. So next, that opens up room for someone else in my life. I'd gone out and spent the time, and so it doesn't mean anything to me. And it was so interesting, because I was telling somebody, for example, I had definitively broken up with someone that I'd been with for 10 years in Los Angeles in a relationship.
Okay.
And I had it was just actually on my last trip. And what had happened is, we had our issues, and I really thought, I'm going to be gone. And lots of times the trial separation is really good, and you get a perspective to either think these are things we can work on, mm-hmm. and we can fix, and these are things that we can't. And this is what I think is important to me, what I think it is. And from his perspective, it wasn't going to be. So that was part of my I went through a divorce and a move in less than a month. But I really wrestled with it, because it was his birthday actually a couple days ago.
Okay.
And I'm saying this only because I'm sure there's been a lot of people that have gone through this, and I'm one of those people that, and I've read this, that the level of they say the level of healthiness in a relationship is how much you can remain friends after the relationship. And so there had been some hurtful things, and there had been, I felt a disconnect and a difference in the way this person behaved when I got down there.
Okay.
Like completely on one level different, even though I'd only gotten, once again, the email, not the call to say this, I'd like to end our romantic relationship and remain friends, soulmates. And so I really wrestled with whether to send a birthday card. And I was asking somebody about that, and this person actually said, "You send birthday cards?" And I thought, yeah, I send cards to my friends. I send birthday cards to my friends. And then I also pick up the phone. If I can't get the card there on time, I pick up the phone. I don't send a text or an email. I don't press the button on Facebook, which is so easy. I would do that maybe with a stranger. But somebody that is significant to me, I'll pick up the phone.
I have a question for you because I know that you and I are officially friends. And I know
and we're not doing it by email or text.
Yeah, because I know I've emailed you before. Like, I know that I have your number. I can call you because I don't want to push my boundaries, but
yeah,
because
all you have to say is that. All you have to say is, I don't, talk about it, because, are we really going to fix things with somebody carrying it around and wondering? Just say, I don't want to push my boundaries. And then I can say, yeah, this is how I feel more comfortable, Greg. Or I can say, oh, not a problem for me.
Because I would love to, Vabe, do it. Like, I know I've sent you a Facebook thing on your birthday, and but I mean, I would.
As you know, you don't see me going on Facebook often. Like, I'll do it in spurts. Like, for example, the other night, I had this monumental day where I found out about 3 people betraying me, and then a lifelong friend texted me that day, to apologize to me, all in one day. And so I walked all the way from Zoomer Media, which is I walked a couple of miles, and then I ran into these people that I saw a dog, and I just love dogs, and I said, can I pet your dog? And they said, and the woman said, it was such an amazing story. She goes, actually, it's not my dog. I'm taking care of this dog. Oh yeah, that's why I stopped, because the dog, how poutine has really become the pesto and the quiche of Canada since I've been home.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the dog was sitting there, and those people were sitting on steps in front of this poutine place. And the dog was looking at the poster of the poutine and salivating, But it was a kind of dog, like a kind of a Saint Bernard type. And I said, can I pet your dog? And I really needed that dog feeling, because I just found out that I got betrayed by 3 people, which kind of reminded me, I'm not a Bible thumper, but it reminds me of the story of, where Jesus says, you're going to deny me 3 times before the cock crows.
Yep.
And I thought of that. You grow up in a Catholic school, and you just remember all the stories. So she said, she goes, it's actually not my dog. I'm looking after it for a friend who had to go away. And I said, God, you're really a good friend. And I said, is it a serious illness? And she said, no, he's in rehab.
Okay.
And she said, it's not the first time I've done this. And you could tell she was in real pain. And I said to her, Betty Ford doesn't advertise this, but because nobody would go. But only 5% of people only ever recover with and don't have relapses. Meaning that relapse is part of the process. That imagine if it's a crime to be a drug addict and to have an alcohol problem, even though cigarette smoking is an addiction. And can you imagine if we put people in jail for smoking? For smoking cigarettes? Can you imagine if people had shame for relapsing and having a cigarette when they said they're going to quit? When it's the same. It's like they're self-medicating. But it was so wonderful that I guess I felt this emotional need to post my night. I took a picture of, myself and these new friends that I met just sitting there with the dog. I kept walking. I think I was talking to you on the phone.
Okay.
And then I stopped at this really great bar that was like this deco bar.
Okay.
And I had this really fun drink called Pink Panther.
Okay.
And I asked the two girls next to me it was so cute that they were going out together, and if they could take a picture of me. And it looks like I have Mickey Mouse mirrors coming
I
out
saw
my
that.
eyes.
You put my name on that.
Because it's like, I said this because you were very pivotal in that conversation. And I looked at it, and afterwards it looked like I was accusing you, but I wasn't. But,
No.
two of my favorite lines, because I watched The Godfather over and over again.
I saw that recently at a screening.
Oh, I can't get enough of it, because every time I get something else out of it.
Yeah.
And people go, oh, so violent. Some people say it's so violent. And no, it's what they have is they have a code of values.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like family first and your friends. Don't ever betray. It's like we can shoot everybody up and we can be dysfunctional, but you know what? Don't lie to me and don't betray me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really respond to the Fredo thing.
Yep.
Because Fredo, he sometimes people betray you because, like not to sound like a Bible thumper, like that Peter.
Yep.
Peter didn't have. It's an allegory. It's a metaphoric story. And I often say that to people. I believe in the Bible, and I say to my son, yeah, it's what is written by man, not by God. And two people, even in modern day, if two people saw something, that they'd have a different version of the story. They saw an accident, and so, but they're parables. They're stories about people's survival and human weaknesses. I mean, it's Shakespeare on one level.
Mm-hmm.
It's about people's foibles. So people betray you because they don't have that strength of character, which, I keep driving it into my son. I say, Emerson. I say, and listen, his name is Emerson, who I named him after. I say, lying and not telling the truth is a weakness, but it's a strength. If you keep pumping iron with it and you keep doing it, it'll be your inclination, your strength will be lying. But if you keep telling the truth, and I tell the truth even if it's painful to people,
Yeah.
because otherwise, how can they trust me? It's actually a compliment. It means I care enough about you. Even if it's painful, I'm gonna tell you the truth, so that you will tell me the truth. I expect.
Mm-hmm.
I expect. And I found out that two people that I've been working with professional, had misrepresented things and lied to me. And the other thing I tell my son is, lying can also be lying by omission. You just don't say something.
Mm-hmm.
And so that person understands something else. So you have lied by omission. And then I use my grandfather's expression is in that you can see a thief steal, but you can't see a liar lie, which intimates it's just as bad to lie and to steal. Like lying is stealing that person's soul. It's messing with their sense of reality. Because they see, lots of times you see something, you feel it. Your animal instinct feels it, and they're denying it.
Yep. Oh, I hear ya.
And so the trust goes away. And for me, it's instant. My trust in them goes away, and my respect goes away. And with respect going away, my love for that person goes away. Because I can't love someone. You can't sleep with your executioner, right?
Nope. Yeah. No, I hear ya.
And respect is earned. Friendship is earned.
Yep. Yeah, we both had some similar situations.
Maybe I should be having a talk show and interviewing you one time.
Oh, I'd take an interview from you. Yeah, I'd gladly do it.
I would love to come on your show and talk about you, but I have to do some research on you first to really be a good interviewer. But I would love to do that because, you know, you do see, like, for example, you know, Martin Short, you know, coming on and interviewing the interviewer. And it becomes funny, and, you know, people would like to know about you.
Yeah.
But, you know, there are some stars that come on and you're told ahead of time you can't ask them these questions.
Well, you know, I find there's a limit where you know, you don't get too personal, but you want to be a conversation, you know. You want people to be able to relate, you know, like you and I having a nice conversation. I loved hearing about your upbringing and your relationship with your son and stuff like that. Not just about the movies. It allows you to come across as a human being as opposed to an image on a screen, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was so great. I don't know how old you are, but Moses Neimer had this incredible interviewer.
I'm 45.
Well, I can't remember what years, whether you would have been watching, but the show was called City Lights, and it was Brian Linehan. And he would do, maybe he's on the archives, but he would, over and over again, big stars would say to him, "How did you find that out?" No one has ever asked that question. And that's what people want, because it's so hard to tell the same story over and over again and with freshness. And that's what makes you different. That's what makes you different. What sets you apart from all the other interviews and all the other interviewers?
What, me?
Yeah. That's going to be your brand. How are you going to be different? And that's what excites the person that's being interviewed is, a question I've never been asked. Now that's refreshing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. No, no, but I gotta say, I really appreciate you. Like I said, you were the first solo interview I did, and I've been doing this show since 2005, but I didn't get into podcasting till 2015, and I've done almost
15, 11, 5, and 15.
There you go.
When I'm heading in the right direction, 11, 5, and 15 are there. I look around. I'm starting to photograph it. I'm photographing Toronto as an immigrant, how immigrants see things. I've been gone so long, and I know how hard it is for me speaking English and knowing this culture to set myself up here. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine how hard it is for somebody from a different culture and doesn't speak English. Horrendous.
Yeah, I only speak English. Yeah.
And then and also, so I'm photographing how I see things now differently, and I'm doing also my O.J. Simpson. It's going to be called the O.J. Simpson collection, and what I notice here everywhere is that people, you know, because it's cold and they lose gloves and they're all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's that, and I'm taking pictures of signs because the signs are really a reflection of a culture.
Yeah. But I tell you, I won a Barry Award earlier this year, and I'm going to tell you, I did thank you in my acceptance speech.
Can you tell me what Barry Awards are? Because is it something in Canada, or what is it?
I'm trying to think of
for the other guests what it is.
What's
the
that?
Other people that are listening. Let's tell the people that are listening what a Barry Award is.
I'm trying to think of who was the founder of CHSR, where I started, and I don't remember his first. It's Barry, and I can't remember his last name, but I guess the award was named after him. And I was nominated a couple of years ago, and I didn't win, but it was nice to be nominated. I was nominated for 3 last year, and I got 1. I couldn't believe it, and you know, like I remember I thanked people that had brought me interviews, and I thanked your manager, but I also had to thank you, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have connected with your manager. Therefore, all these people he sent me would have never been on my show. It's kind of like
I didn't know that he had all those people on, so that's great.
Yeah, like
but I had no idea that he had all his clients on, and he was on twice, right?
I had him on.
He's got an amazing music career. He's got it. So
yeah.
I'm glad that and I didn't know that your show was also music. So what a great find for you to have Mike Gormley.
Yep.
Because amazing people that he's been involved with. And do you know now he has his own talk show?
Yeah, I know Accent On, yeah.
Well, but they have, I've been on that show, but now they have once a week, and it's a challenge for him now because he has to get guests on. But they have Accent On Mike Gormley.
Yep.
On the same show.
I listened the night that you called in because he had Peter Foldy on, and I've had Peter Foldy on a couple of times on here.
Yeah, I introduced Mike to Peter Foldy.
Yep.
I met Peter Foldy because I used to run the Los Angeles branch of the Academy of Canadian Cinema and Television.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter would always be there. And I didn't know about his musical career, but I did know about him as a writer. And it was actually Mike Gormley. I introduced him to Mike Gormley, and they became friends. And they share a music history, but I didn't know about his career and his number one hit in Canada. And in fact, Peter, I don't necessarily know what I can say the title is, but now that I'm working at Zoomer, Mike approached me about getting one of Peter's projects produced at Zoomer.
Is it Penetration?
So we'll see. I'm sorry?
Is it Penetration, that play that he was involved?
No, it's not Penetration.
Okay.
And Mike has always also pitched me about another client. Actually, I suggested it because I feel very strongly about Sydney Bullens, and a very contemporary story that she has, or he has now. That's I don't know whether he's been on your show or not.
No, not him. No.
I don't know which Mike Gormley. Until you told me which Mike Gormley clients have been on your show, but he has this client, Sydney Bullens, and he used to be Sydney Bullens and had an amazing early career and albums and has been interviewed by Dick Clark and sang backup for Elton John and I said, Mike, I said he'd make that would make a great. He should be on Transparent. I said he should be playing himself. Trans is really, 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 really trending right now, and I really believe in this client, because I love the music, and he's a really great interviewer, and you should have him on. Now he's called Sydney, and Mike knew him when he was a she from early on.
Okay,
but I love his music. Okay. And courage to have been that person. And he sings, and then also he got married and had 2 children before he transitioned. But one of his children died of cancer at 11. But he has a one woman show on right now that I'm very, I pitched it to Mike. I said, why don't you bring it to Zoomer Media?
Okay. Moses
would probably love this kind of story. So anyway, I strongly suggest that you get Sydney Bullens. So he used to be a she, and it was Cindy. And you should go online and see the career that he had when he was younger and was a she, and he's just wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think Mike is the perfect person to kickstart his career.
Yeah. But not only that, it's kind of like It's a Wonderful Life, when where that scene where the angel says to brings Jimmy Stewart to George Bailey to the graveyard, and it's his brother's grave, and he goes, "What do you mean my brother died? He was a war hero, He saved all those people." And he goes, "Yes, but if you hadn't saved him in the lake from drowning when you were 11, he would not be alive to save all those people. Therefore, he did not save those people because he was not there because you did not exist."
Oh, God, I know. I just love talking to you because you've seen so many films.
Yep.
And I love talking to people that went to film school.
Oh, yeah.
And I just love it. I just love it. Speaking of films, one of the suggestions I had made to Mark Lester, and he thought it was a great idea, but it was too late. I told him after the film was made. I said, I always thought the end of the film should be like Straight Jacket, where there's like this altercation fight between Perry King and Stedman, and you rip off his face, and he's I can't remember who I said he should be, but he's someone else.
Oh. Wow.
Did you see Straight Jacket? Did you ever see Straight Jacket?
I haven't seen that.
Oh God, it's a classic. It's with Joan Crawford and once again Joan Crawford and Betty Davis.
Oh yeah, they've done a lot of films together.
You have to rent it. It's a classic.
I
don't think it's Betty Davis. So it's Joan Crawford. Okay. You have to see it.
Okay, I'll have to put that on my watch list.
It's up there with all the Joan Crawford credits. But I have to say that we are friends, and I've never been to the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Never been to the East Coast, but it's been on my bucket list, and I'm going to come to see you.
Well, you know what? I'm in Fredericton. It's funny because I never travel, but you know what? With that,
why don't you ever travel?
I don't. You know what? It's a sad thing, and I hate this. And I think it goes back to when I was young. I remember I have this memory.
No, it goes back to when you were younger, not young, right?
Yeah, back when I was younger, when my mom dropped me off at kindergarten, and I never wanted her to leave, and I never wanted to leave home, and
did you have I was the exact opposite. I remember my mother dropping me off at kindergarten and all these kids crying and everything, and it was like, all right, I'm ready to go. This is great.
Because I would love some point to go to Toronto, because I know Leslie Donaldson's invited me and you've invited me. I'd love to see the zoo.
What's stopping you, Greg?
Right now I got an
No, but
yeah.
There's not to interrupt because it's the famous Langlois thing, but I have to say this, and I have to go because my IT guy's coming.
Okay.
And I told you that before the thing.
Yeah.
I got to get my TV and everything set up for my mother coming. She's 88, and I'm kind of a... Millennials get mad when I say this, but I'm not being denigrated to other people, but I call myself a techno-tard.
Yeah.
And some people don't, millennials get offended. Other people they totally get where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So, because I wasn't born with, computer skills, with a computer in my hand, like the telephone, like it was for our generation.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I had someone say to me, first of all, I always use the excuse, the saying from Bruce Springsteen. People do what they want to do, and the rest is all excuses.
Oh, okay.
And I always say that to people because that hit me hard. And then a therapist one time said to me, "Is there anything that you ever really wanted to do, but you never did it?"
Okay.
So, Greg, on an ending note, to quote Bruce Springsteen, people do what they want to do, and the rest is all excuses.
Well, right now, I just got to deal with an illness in my family. But I'm going to tell you, I plan to come to Toronto. I want to take you and Leslie out to dinner.
All right.
I would gladly do that because if there's accommodations being provided for me, it's the least I can do.
That's right.
But if you ever come up the Maritimes, I'm in Fredericton. And I want to thank you too for connecting. Technically speaking, you connected me with Leslie Donaldson as well, and I've had her on a couple times. I just love her,
Well, you also mentioned you wanted to get Joe Kell, and I will be getting on the phone with him today because he's been checking in with me saying, why haven't I heard from you?
Mm-hmm.
And then you told me you haven't heard from him. So I'm thinking, what number were you calling?
What's that?
I was thinking, what number were you calling? So we got to get.
I didn't. I never called him. I messaged him on his webpage or something. Just haven't heard back.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe he didn't know that you. We get these fans contacting us, and that's actually why initially when you contacted me, I had told you to contact Mike Gormley, because especially if it's a guy, I get nervous because I've had.
I don't blame you.
I had this one stalker once that actually the FBI had an eye on. And so I'm always afraid. So I will have my management, in this case it was Mike Gormley, contact the person first to make sure that they know I'm not a single white female.
Yeah.
No, just to, making a joke, but I have to go because I have that. I don't want the person to knock on the door and suddenly he's on the radio.
Do me one favor before you go. Would you do a plug for my show, please?
Oh, absolutely. Hi, my name is Lisa Langlois, and I'm listening to Greg Python Gilbert's Python Paradise. Woohoo!
Absolutely. Lisa, I'm happy to have you as a friend, and I look forward to, doing some stuff in the future. Maybe, we can get some projects going. And
that's right.
Yeah. And remember, you can always promote on here.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Don't hesitate to reach out.
All right. Take care.
God bless you.
God bless you. Bye.
Bye-bye.